The Zarkonian Dominion's fleet hovered over the desolate mining colony of Outpost Whiskey 99, casting long, ominous shadows over the dusty terrain below. Admiral Clorf, standing at the command deck of the colossal dreadnought Imperius Maximus, stared down at the tiny settlement with a mixture of amusement and boredom. "This will take no effort at all," he muttered, sipping his nutrient sludge. "Commander Floop, prepare the troops for planetary pacification." Commander Floop, a gangly, amphibian-like Zarkonian, bowed. "At once, Admiral. Shall we deploy the first wave of elite death troopers or initiate orbital bombardment?" Clorf scoffed. "Don't be ridiculous. This is a backwater rock with barely a functional defense system. We shall deploy a diplomatic envoy and request their immediate surrender. A mere formality, of course." Moments later, a sleek Zarkonian landing craft descended gracefully into the colony's main square, kicking up a cloud of dust. The ship's doors hissed open, and out marched the Dominion's finest bureaucratic envoy, a three-eyed, eight-limbed, excessively formal alien named Sub-Adjunct Wylarp. Wylarp cleared its throat and activated its holographic declaration. "Attention! Primitive life forms of Outpost Whiskey 99. You are hereby annexed by the glorious Zarkonian Dominion. Surrender immediately, and you shall be assimilated into our grand collective with minimal—" A beer bottle whizzed through the air and smacked Wylarp square in the forehead. The envoy let out a surprised gurgle and collapsed. Standing nearby, Sergeant Earl Grumpy Haggard took another swig from his beer and squinted at the fallen alien. "Well, hell, I didn't expect that to work." Captain Sarah Monroe, the colony's official leader, turned to the ragtag group of veterans beside her with an expression of sheer horror. "Are you insane? You just threw a beer at an alien diplomat." Grumpy shrugged. "Wasn't gonna drink it. Too warm." Monroe groaned and pinched the bridge of her nose. "This was supposed to be a peaceful—" "Surrender!" Reinforcements were supposed to arrive, but no. What do I get instead? A bunch of washed-up retirees with bad knees and worse attitudes. Jimmy Boom Boom Jackson, the group's explosives enthusiast, chuckled. "Yeah, well, you're welcome." Monroe scowled. "For what?" Boom Boom pulled out a detonator and pressed the button. Behind him, the Zarkonian ship exploded in a spectacular display of fireworks, sending flaming debris skyward. Monroe's eyes widened in disbelief. "You put explosives on their ship?" Boom Boom grinned. "If you're not blowing up the enemies—" "Landing craft on site. Are you really even fighting a war?" Before Monroe could respond, a thunderous voice echoed from the sky. "What is happening?" Admiral Clorf stared in disbelief as smoke and fire rose from the remains of his diplomatic envoy's ship. His previously calm expression contorted into something resembling a malfunctioning toaster. "Commander Floop," Clorf barked. Did the humans just decline our surrender request?" Floop swallowed hard. It would appear so, Admiral." Clorf's eye twitched. "Deploy the first wave of death troopers. Kill everyone." Back in the colony, Grumpy cracked his knuckles. "Welp. Boys, looks like we got ourselves a fight." Monroe threw up her hands. "We were supposed to surrender." Big Gus, the group's heavy weapons specialist, patted her on the shoulder. "Ain't too late to surrender later. Let's have a little fun first." Marty Slick Kowalski spun his aviators onto his face. "You know, we could fight them like proper soldiers." Wi-Fi Jenkins, the group's resident hacker, snorted. "Yeah, or we could fight dirty." Grumpy grinned. "Oh, I like that." Within the hour, Outpost Whiskey 99 had been transformed into a minefield of absurd booby traps. Boom Boom had wired up a network of explosive porta-potties. Big Gus had modified an old bulldozer into an armored personnel carrier. Red, a bulldozer with steel plates duct taped to it. Wi-Fi Jenkins had managed to hijack the Zarkonian comms network, replacing their battlefield coordination with a never-ending loop of country music. And Marty had somehow, through sheer ingenuity and questionable ethics, managed to duct tape several mining lasers together into something that vaguely resembled a tank. The first wave of Zarkonian death troopers, sleek and genetically engineered to perfection, stormed the colony. And then things got weird. The first squad tripped over a mess of strategically placed beer cans, setting off a chain reaction of slapstick carnage. The second squad triggered the porta-potty bomb, showering them in a mix of sewage and high-yield explosives. The third squad found themselves being chased by Big Gus in his Mad Max-style bulldozer of doom. Admiral Clorf, watching the carnage from orbit, felt a cold dread creep into his stomach. His elite forces, his perfectly engineered war machines, were losing to geriatrics. What is happening? Clorf stammered. Commander Floop checked the tactical reports. It appears the humans are, fighting back, sir. Clorf's fingers dug into his command console. Fighting back? With what? Floop hesitated. One appears to be using a homemade rocket launcher made from beer kegs. Clorf's voice rose an octave. And is it effective? Floop winced. Sir, they just took out one of our mechs. Clorf's eye twitched again. Floop. Yes, Admiral. Send. In the Black Talons, down below, Grumpy lit a cigar as another alien war machine exploded in the distance. All right, boys, he said with a grin. Now the real fight starts. Admiral Clorf seethed as he watched his death troopers get torn apart by what appeared to be nothing more than a bunch of senile, out-of-shape humans wielding primitive weaponry and an unhealthy disregard for the laws of physics. His elite soldiers, genetically, engineered for peak combat efficiency, were slipping on beer cans, running face-first into booby traps, and, in one particularly humiliating case, getting run over by a makeshift bulldozer blasting Sweet Home Alabama at full volume. Clorf slammed his fist onto the console. This is a disgrace. The Black Talons will restore order. Commander Floop hesitated. Are you sure, Admiral? The Black Talons are our most feared and ruthless warriors. Deploying them against these creatures seems like overkill. Overkill? Clorf's eye twitched violently. They're losing to a group of retirement home escapees. Deploy the Black Talons. Floop gulped and saluted before sending the order. Moments later, deep within the bowels of the Imperius Maximus, containment pods hissed open, and the Black Talons emerged, 8-foot-tall cybernetic killing machines, their bodies enhanced with plasma weapons, reinforced armor, and a complete lack of mercy. With synchronized precision, the Black Talons boarded their drop pods and launched toward the battlefield below. Down on Outpost Whiskey 99, Grumpy Haggard sat on an overturned crate, lazily chewing on a cigar as he watched the last of the standard Zarkonian forces either retreat or explode. Big Gus, covered in dust and alien blood, leaned against the wreckage of what used to be a Zarkonian war mech. You think that's it? We scared him off already? Wi-Fi Jenkins, still hunched over his ancient laptop, cackled. Oh, hell no. I just intercepted a transmission. They're sending in the big boys now. Boom Boom clapped, his hands together. Oh, good. The warm-up round was getting boring. Monroe, who had long since given up trying to regain any semblance of control over the situation, threw up her hands. Are you people insane? They're sending in their top warriors. This isn't a joke. Marty Slick Kowalski, still wearing his aviators despite the fact that it was nighttime, grinned. You're right. It's not a joke. He pulled out a roll of duct tape. It's personal. Monroe rubbed her temples. I need a drink. Already ahead of you, Grumpy muttered, tossing her a can of beer. Now shut up and grab a gun. Suddenly, the sky burned bright as drop pods crashed down across the colony, sending massive shockwaves through the dusty ground. The moment they landed, the pod's hatches blew off, releasing the Black Talons, towering cybernetic nightmares with glowing red eyes and plasma rifles the size of refrigerators. One of the Black Talons stomped forward and scanned the battlefield. Human resistance detected. Proceeding with elimination protocol. Big Gus cracked his knuckles. Oh, we're doing protocols now? Cool, I got one of my own. He reached into a crate, pulled out a flamethrower made from a repurposed mining torch, and immediately set the nearest black talon on fire. The massive cyborg shrieked in a mechanical voice, staggering back as flames engulfed its armor. Boom boom. Whooped. "Gus, my man, you always know how to get the party started." The rest of the black talons moved with lethal efficiency, unleashing rapid bursts of plasma fire that cut through anything in their path. The old soldiers dove for cover as beams of superheated energy turned buildings into molten slag. Monroe grabbed Grumpy by the collar and shook him. "Okay, now we need to retreat." Grumpy pried her hands off. "Retreat? We ain't even started yet." "Started? They're indestructible." Grumpy took another puff from his cigar. "Nothing's indestructible if you hit it with enough explosives." Boom Boom perked up. "Oh, is it time? Is it finally time?" Grumpy nodded. "It's time." Boom Boom giggled like a lunatic and ran off towards the storage depot. Monroe crossed her arms. "What the hell did you just unleash?" Grumpy smirked. "You ever hear of a little thing called overkill?" As the black talons continued their relentless advance, Boom Boom sprinted through the colony, heading straight for the secret stash, the special explosives. He yanked open the doors to a heavily locked storage shed and stepped inside, revealing the motherlode, a collection of high-yield military-grade explosives that should not, under any circumstances, have been in a civilian colony. He grabbed an oversized detonator, an absurdly large bundle of C4, and, just for fun, a few fireworks. Oh, this is going to be beautiful. Meanwhile, Wi-Fi Jenkins was hunched over his laptop, furiously typing. "All right, boys, I got a little digital surprise for our cybernetic guests." "What kind of surprise?" Grumpy asked. Jenkins grinned. "You ever hear of the old Windows Update attack?" Slick nearly dropped his duct tape. "Oh my God, you wouldn't." Jenkins cracked his knuckles. "Watch me." With a few keystrokes, Jenkins hacked into the Black Talon's cybernetic systems, forcing their internal processors into an unavoidable, slow, unskippable software update. The results were immediate. The massive, terrifying killing machines froze, mid-attack. Their eyes flickered as their systems displayed the dreaded message, "Installing updates. 1% complete. Do not turn off your system." The old soldiers stared in amazement. Grumpy nodded in approval. "Wi-Fi, you magnificent bastard." The Black Talons twitched violently, trying to override the forced update, but Jenkins had anticipated that. "Oh, don't worry," he said smugly. "I disabled the cancel button." Boom Boom, now holding about 70 pounds of explosives, strolled back toward the battlefield. "So, do we still need to blow 'em up?" Grumpy shrugged. "Might as well. You know, just in case." Admiral Clorf, watching from orbit, was screaming at his control panel. "What are they doing? Why are the Black Talons just standing there?" Commander Floop hesitated before replying. Sir, it appears they are undergoing a forced software update." "From what?" Floop swallowed hard. From an ancient human operating system called, Windows XP, sir." Clorf's eye twitched so violently that his monocle shattered. "How?" Floop shrugged helplessly. "The humans appear to be extremely good at causing problems." Clorf's entire body trembled with rage. I can't just blow up the planet. Blow it up right now." Floop nodded and relayed the order. Down below, the old soldiers were busy, rigging the frozen Black Talons with explosives, when Wi-Fi Jenkins suddenly cursed. Bad news, guys." "What now?" Monroe asked, already dreading the answer. Jenkins pointed to the sky. "They're gonna nuke us." Grumpy cracked his neck. "Welp, guess we're stealing ourselves a spaceship." Slick grinned and held up his duct tape. "Dibs on flying it," Monroe paled. "Oh my God." Grumpy smirked and lit a fresh cigar. "Relax, Captain. What's the worst that could happen?" The sky above Outpost Whiskey 99 burned with the eerie glow of an impending orbital strike. The Imperius Maximus, a Zarkonian warship the size of a city, had begun charging its main cannon, a planet-killing weapon designed to vaporize entire worlds with the precision of a surgeon and the subtlety of a sledgehammer. Admiral Clorf's patience had officially run out. "Enough!" he bellowed, his frog-like throat pouch inflating with rage. "I have entertained this nonsense for far too long. Commander Floop, initiate planetary annihilation." Floop's fingers hovered uncertainly over the console. Sir, our troops are still on the planet," Clorf growled. "They had their chance. If they can't handle a few old humans, they are not worthy of the Dominion. But, the Emperor may frown upon us, vaporizing our own most elite warriors." Clorf's eye twitched. "The Emperor is not here, Floop. I am. Fire the damn cannon." Floop swallowed hard, pressed a few buttons, and the ship's main weapon hummed to life. A beam of pure destruction began forming in the depths of the ship's core, ready to reduce the entire colony, and everyone in it, to a fine layer of space dust. But down below, the veterans of Outpost Whiskey 99 had other plans. "All right, boys," Grumpy said, tossing his cigar aside as he eyed the glowing doom forming in the sky. "Time to steal us a ride." Slick adjusted his aviators. "I thought you'd never ask." The plan, such as it was, had been cobbled together in the last 5 minutes over a case of stolen beer. It was ridiculous, borderline suicidal, and involved exactly 0 proper safety measures. In other words, it was perfect. Step 1. Hijack a Zarkonian warship. Step 2. Fly said warship into the Imperius Maximus. Step 3. Hack their systems. Shut down the planet killer, and maybe, if they had time, steal a few souvenirs. Monroe, who had long since stopped trying to regain control of the situation, sighed. "And how exactly are we supposed to hijack an alien warship? Just walk in and ask nicely?" Big Gus cracked his knuckles. "I was thinking more like walk in and punch him in the face." Boom Boom grinned. "And then we ask nicely, with explosives." Jenkins was already typing furiously on his ancient laptop. "I got this. Give me 2 minutes and I'll find us a ride." Grumpy frowned. "You hacked their entire fleet earlier in less time than that." Jenkins nodded. "Yeah, but that was just messing with their software. This is serious. I gotta find a ship that's big enough for all of us, lightly guarded and preferably not full of flesh-melting booby traps." Slick tapped his foot impatiently. "Come on, man, we don't have 2 minutes." Jenkins smirked and hit enter. "Then it's a good thing I only needed 1. Nearby, a Zarkonian troop transport rumbled to life and lowered its ramp. Boom Boom whooped. "Ha! Look at 'em leaving their keys in the ignition like some kind of rookie mistake." Monroe blinked. "Wait, aliens have keys?" "Not exactly," Jenkins muttered, stuffing his laptop into his pack. "But they do have extremely lazy password habits." Grumpy sighed. "Let me guess. Password 123? Jenkins grinned. "Nah, just password." Slick groaned. "Man, that's just embarrassing." "Less talking, more flying," Gus said, grabbing Monroe and practically throwing her into the ship as the rest of the veterans scrambled inside. The Zarkonian pilots barely had time to process what was happening before they were unceremoniously introduced to the business end of Big Gus's fists. A few bone-crunching punches and an impromptu duct tape session later, the ship belonged to the humans. Grumpy slid into the co-pilot's seat and grinned. "All right, Slick. Let's see if you still remember how to fly." Slick cracked his knuckles, pulled on the controls, and the ship lurched off the ground. "Oh, this baby's got some zip!" Monroe, strapped into a seat, gritted her teeth as the ship tilted violently. "Are you sure you can fly this thing?" Slick cackled. "Lady, I flew helicopters in Nam. This is a damn video game by comparison." Grumpy arched a brow. "You weren't in Nam." Slick waved a hand dismissively. Details. The ship shot upward, engines roaring, heading straight for the eye. Imperius Maximus. Alarms blared as the Zarkonian fleet scrambled to respond. Clorf, watching the incoming transport, narrowed his eyes. Why is that ship flying directly at us? Floop checked the readings. I believe the humans have, commandeered it, sir. Clorf's nostrils flared. Of course they have. Meanwhile, inside the hijacked transport, Boom Boom was setting up something particularly nasty in the cargo hold. Monroe leaned over. Do I even want to know what that is? Boom Boom giggled. Probably not. The ship rocketed toward the Imperius. Maximus, dodging plasma fire with slick maneuvering that suggested either incredible skill or absolutely reckless disregard for safety. Inside the Zarkonian warship, Floop shouted, Sir, the humans are attempting to board us. Clorf stared. Let them. He grinned darkly. I want them on board. I will deal with them myself. Inside the transport, the veterans braced themselves as the docking clamps engaged. The ship connected with the larger vessel, and the ramp lowered with a hiss of steam. Grumpy cracked his knuckles. All right, boys. Time to show 'em what an old-school boarding party looks like. Big Gus revved a stolen plasma cannon. Dibs on first punch. Boom Boom activated a remote detonator. Dibs on first explosion. Slick adjusted his aviators. Dibs on making a dramatic entrance. Jenkins cracked his fingers over his laptop. Dibs on breaking their entire security system. Monroe sighed, grabbed a rifle, and muttered, Dibs on making sure you idiots don't die. The ramp fully lowered. A battalion of Zarkonian guards stood ready, weapons aimed. There was a long silence. Then Grumpy took a step forward and let out a low chuckle. Well now, what are y'all waiting for? A damn invitation? The Zarkonians hesitated for a split second. That was their first mistake. Boom Boom hit the detonator. A dozen well-placed explosives turned the hangar bay into a chaos-filled war zone. Gussie charged forward, plowing through aliens like a runaway freight train. Slick flipped over a railing, dual-wielding stolen plasma pistols like he was starring in his own action movie. Jenkins ducked behind cover, typing furiously. All right, give me 30 seconds, and I'll have full control of their ship. Clorf, watching the carnage unfold from his throne room, growled. Fine. If no one else can kill them, I will. He grabbed his ceremonial plasma blade and marched toward the battlefield. Grumpy smirked as he saw the angry admiral approaching. Finally, he muttered, cracking his knuckles. Been waiting for this one. Clorf raised his sword. Prepare to die, human. Grumpy pulled a cigar from his pocket, bit off. The end, and grinned. Buddy, you ain't ready for me. The air inside the Imperius Maximus was thick with smoke, sparks, and the distant echoes of explosions as the battle raged across the massive warship. The Zarkonian guards had fought hard until they ran into the human retirees, at which point they mostly just fought confused. The old men had turned the Zarkonian flagship into their own personal playground of destruction. Slick had barricaded himself in the fighter bay and was now joyriding in a stolen Zarkonian attack drone, blasting away at anything that looked vaguely important. Wi-Fi Jenkins had taken complete control of the ship's internal security system and was using it to sow chaos, locking doors at random, reversing gravity in entire corridors, and piping country music at deafening volume into the officers' quarters. Boom Boom had discovered what looked like a highly experimental and highly dangerous plasma bomb. Naturally, he was strapping it to a stolen hovercard and whistling a merry tune. Big Gus was engaged in a fistfight with 3 Zarkonian shock troopers at the same time, laughing maniacally as he threw one poor bastard through a reinforced steel. Bulkhead. And Grumpy Haggard. He was face to face with Admiral Clorf. Clorf stood tall, his massive, muscular form clad in regal battle armor, his plasma blade glowing with an eerie blue light. He had personally executed thousands of enemies, led victorious campaigns across the galaxy, and crushed entire civilizations beneath his boot. But right now, he was up against an old, beer-gutted, cigar-chomping human with absolutely no respect for authority, and that was terrifying. Grumpy smirked as he rolled his cigar between his fingers. You know, I always figured if I ever fought an alien warlord, It'd be in some kind of fancy duel, maybe some dramatic music playing. But nah. Here we are, you look pissed, Chlorf growled. You have humiliated me, Grumpy nodded. Yep, been doing that all day. You have destroyed my fleet. Well, I wouldn't say destroyed. Grumpy took a slow drag from his cigar. Nah, wait. Yeah, I would say that. You have hacked my systems, stolen my ships, and made a mockery of the Dominion. Grumpy exhaled a long stream of smoke. And don't forget the part where we blew up your fancy death troopers with porta potties. Chlorf's nostrils flared as his rage boiled over. Enough! He raised his plasma blade and charged. Grumpy grinned. Finally! The two clashed in the center of the bridge, Chlorf swinging his plasma sword with the precision of a seasoned warrior. Grumpy dodged, sidestepped, and countered with sheer brute force, landing a punch straight to the alien's gut. Chlorf stumbled back, momentarily stunned. What? That actually hurt! Grumpy cracked his knuckles. Yeah, buddy. See, the thing about us old soldiers? We may be slow, we may be cranky, but we hit like a damn freight train. Chlorf snarled and lunged again, his sword slicing through the air. Grumpy barely dodged, the blade singing the edge of his jacket. He responded by headbutting Chlorf straight in the nose. The Zarkonian admiral reeled, clutching his face. You barbaric! Grumpy grabbed a metal pipe from the floor and swung. It with all his might, catching Chlorf right in the ribs. The alien staggered, growling in frustration. Chlorf's eyes burned with fury. You fight without honor? Grumpy laughed. Honors for people who plan on losing. Elsewhere, Wi-Fi Jenkins had finally broken through the ship's last security lock. All right. Boys, he hollered over comms. I got full control of their weapon system. Slick, still zipping around in his stolen fighter, whooped. Time to play, Boom Boom cackled. I just need a big button to press. Jenkins grinned and tapped a final key. Oh, I got you covered. Suddenly, every single weapon on the Imperius Maximus powered up, except now, instead of targeting the planet, they were aimed at the Zarkonian fleet. On the bridge, Chlorf heard the automated warning and his blood ran cold. Alert. Primary targeting systems overridden. Firing solution locked on Zarkonian ships. Chlorf's rage turned to terror. What have you done? Grumpy chuckled. Well, you were real keen on blowing something up. With a final dramatic beep, the entire Zarkonian fleet opened fire on itself. The chaos was instant. Battleships and dreadnoughts exploded in a chain reaction of devastation. Fire and debris filled the void of space as the once mighty fleet of the Dominion was reduced to little more than flaming wreckage. Grumpy dusted off his jacket. That'll do. Chlorf, watching his fleet burn, let out an anguished howl. No! Grumpy smirked. You done yet, or you want to keep dancing? Chlorf, eyes wild, let out a feral roar and charged again, swinging wildly. Grumpy sighed, stepped aside, and, without hesitation, jammed a taser directly into Chlorf's gut. The Zarkonian admiral seized up, convulsing violently before dropping, like a sack of bricks. Grumpy exhaled. Phew. Thought he'd never shut up. Jenkins' voice crackled over comms. Guys? Not to ruin the moment, but we should probably leave. This ship's a little unstable. Boom Boom's laughter echoed. Oh yeah, I may have rigged a few things to explode. Monroe's voice cut in. A few things? You rigged everything! Grumpy stretched his back. All right, boys. Time to call it a day. The veterans sprinted through the crumbling corridors, dodging explosions as they made their way to the hangar. Slick had already prepped their stolen transport for takeoff. Get in, losers! We're going home! With one final leap, they boarded the ship and blasted out of the hangar just as the Imperius Maximus erupted into a fiery explosion behind them. Grumpy settled into his seat, letting out a contented sigh as he lit another cigar. Well, that was fun. Monroe, still shaking from the experience, rubbed her temples. This was insane. Wi-Fi grinned. Yeah, but you can't say it wasn't effective. Boom Boom leaned back with a dreamy sigh. That explosion was beautiful, Big Gus nodded. Good work, team. Who's hungry? Slick smirked. Space BBQ at my place? Grumpy exhaled a long stream of smoke. Damn right. As their ship sped away from the burning wreckage of what was once the galaxy's most feared fleet, Grumpy leaned back with a satisfied grin. He mused. I think we just started a war. Boom Boom chuckled. Hey, not the first time. Slick raised a beer. To pissing off the most powerful empire in the galaxy. Grumpy grinned and clinked his beer against Slick's. Damn right. To retirement. As they flew off into the void, leaving behind nothing but destruction and one very humiliated alien empire, one thing was certain. This wasn't over, not by a long shot.